going on, guys? This is Sean here from Venture Art House. So after a few requests on our Instagram account from a couple of our followers, in the weeks coming, we are going to be putting together a series of videos on filmmaking and photography to help other creatives who are either just getting started out there or just need some help in their creative lifestyle with things that they don't know how to do. And after all, that's what we're here to do. We're here to help one another. So today, the topic that we are going to cover is the 3 most important settings that you need to nail in your camera to be able to get started with filmmaking. So let's get into it. So today we're going to be going over some of the settings on this, and the 3 things that we're going to be going over is going to be our aperture, our shutter speed, and our ISO. The first setting that we are going to be going over, as it reads left to right on the bottom of our camera menu, is going to be our shutter speed. So for filming, we primarily film at 24 frames per second. That is basically the speed that actual film moves at. So to emulate that, we film at 24 frames per second in our Sony body here. Now there is what is called the 180-degree shutter rule. So what that means is that our shutter speed needs to be twice what our actual frame rate is going to be. So 24 frames per second multiplied by 2 is roughly 1/48th of a second. So since our camera cannot do 1/48th of a second, it will do 1/50th. So what we're gonna set it to right over here in the camera, if you can see, is 1/50th of a second. Whether you have a DSLR or mirrorless camera, should be able to do this. On bigger high-end cinema cameras, that will be called your shutter angle, and you will actually be able to set that to 1/48th of a second. But for the mirrorless guys, for the DSLR guys, if this is all you can afford and you're getting started out on your first camera, you can do stuff at 1/50th and it will look absolutely fine. Now, the next thing that we need to worry about right here is going to be this setting right here in the middle. And this is what we refer to as our aperture or f-stop. Basically, the few rules, fundamental rules for aperture or f-stop, whichever one you want to call it, are the lens inside has elements. And basically, these elements open closed to wide, kind of like our eyes do. So if we were to walk into a very dark room, our iris is actually going to open up to let in more light. So essentially, the lower the number in the middle, depending on your lens, you are going to be letting in more light. So currently, I'm shooting on a prime lens here that stops down to about f2. So basically at f2, I am letting in a lot of light. So the lower the number will let in more light. Now, depending on your lens, you may not be able to go down to f2. Prime lenses, which are lenses that have no zoom, will typically let in a lot more light. Now, the next thing to note about filming at these wider open f-stops is going to be your depth of field. Now, in the simplest of terms, a lot of people out there love to get that look with the blur in the background and everything. And basically, that's how you are going to get that in the simplest of terms. So not all lenses are going to do that. The kit lenses that kind of come out there with a lot of the cameras today are probably not going to do it. If you want something like that, I would definitely recommend shooting on primes. They're usually very affordable. They're sharper, and they are great in low light, as we discussed before, because they are opening the iris much wider. So if you do want that blur and that shallow depth of field, which is what we call it, you will need to stop down and basically open your lens up nice and wide. So that is the 2 things that the f-stop is going to do for us. So number 1, just to rehash, it is going to let in more light on your image. And then number 2, it is going to give you more shallow depth of field, more blur in the background, or bokeh. All right, so the last setting that we need to go over to get you guys started making videos and films out there is going to be our ISO. So that's going to be all the way over here on the left-hand side. Hold on, let me pull focus there. This is going to be all the way over here on this side, and basically what the ISO does is it's our sensitivity to light on our image. So the higher the number of our ISO, the brighter our image is going to be. Now there is a caveat on this. The higher in ISOs that you go, you will introduce more digital noise, more grain in your footage, and it's really not going to look so good at all. Now, depending on your camera, some cameras can handle higher ISOs than others without introducing as much noise. The Sony A7 III that we use is an amazing low light camera. It's always great to use lighting, it's always great to have available light, but sometimes when you're in run and gun situations and you're in the dark, you will not have access to things like that. So it is great to have a low light camera. I'm not saying by any means that you need to go out there and buy the most expensive camera, but as far as decently affordable low light cameras on the market, definitely recommend Sony. So beyond just pushing your image to get it brighter, and also what we're talking about, the caveat about getting more digital noise in your image, the grain that we don't want at all. The last thing that I definitely want to touch base on, because I got a message about this last week, is setting your ISO to auto. Now, generally in a professional environment, that is a big no-no. You do not want to do that at all. And here's a few reasons why. So basically, ISO auto, the camera will measure the scene that it sees, and it wants to set a perfect exposure value for all of the scene. Now, if you're going from inside to outside in a scene, sometimes it's okay and you can get away with it. But even the slightest minute little changes in light in one room that would look or appear to be the same exposure can really give you some nasty results that you can't fix in post-editing. So a person had reached out to me earlier this week and they were having this problem. Basically, they sent me a video clip that they had recorded, and I felt so bad because this guy didn't know. And what the image was doing is it was flashing from bright to dark, bright, dark, bright, dark. So it just kept going back and jumping all over the place between exposure values. So ISO auto is something that you can use if you are going from darker areas to brighter areas to smoothly transist from time to time. However, I wouldn't recommend it. It's always best to fix your ISO depending on your scene to get the right amount of brightness in your image and exposure that you're desiring. All right, so now that we have those three settings down, the most important thing you can do is go out there and practice. These three fundamentals will basically kind of give you the lay of the land to just get started in your video making, your filmmaking, whatever it is that your goals are. In the more coming weeks, we will get into more in-depth things like color profiles, white balance, setting your audio and camera, how to light, what lenses to choose, all of these great topics. So if you like this video, please leave a thumbs up down below. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And then if there's any questions that you have, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. I'll be answering them myself personally. So we will have some more video content coming out to you guys again soon. Really appreciate you guys if you watch this video. Stay tuned. We'll have some more stuff for you.